Let's start now by looking at our settings. I have my settings, and the first thing inside is the device setting. Of course, as we understand, when we work on a relay, we have two types of settings: global setting and application setting. The global setting is a general setting that applies to the relay in general, while the term application setting is related to the setting specific to the protection function that the relay will perform. So when I open the device setting, for example, I found that it asks whether your setting should be in primary, secondary, or percent. Of course, each of these options must be considered correctly. If you set it to primary, you should know that the setting is applied in primary. If you choose secondary, there are also some things you need to pay attention to afterward. For example, when it asks you to provide the full scale of the current, the full scale of the voltage, and the full scale of the power. So when you say you want it in percent, it will be percent of what? Of your full scale. Therefore, you need to be aware of which setting you are choosing here. So I chose secondary. It will ask you how many setting groups you have. You can say you have 1, 2, or 3. As you wish, there's no problem at all. However, as we know, only one setting group can be activated at a time. But of course, you have the option here either via control, meaning you control it through binary input, or you can tell it to activate setting group 1. So if you tell it to activate setting group 1, then setting group 1 becomes active. If you tell it, then here you can change according to what? According to the binary input, yours. So of course, through the input, if you need to do it, you can open it directly, and then you can go to the general, and in the general section here you will find 3 inputs and 2 and 3. Therefore you can work between the 3, meaning if you get this as 1 and this is 0 and 0, it means I'm working, then 0 1 0, then 0 0 1, then 1 0 1, and so on, so that you can write your 8 groups. Nice. Very good. Okay, so what do we have here? Of course, you know the 3 bits because you start with 0 0 0 and you go up to 1 1 1. So what can you form between them? Your 8. Your 8. Okay, going back to our review, we usually only need. Okay, after that, you have your language, normally English, and the binary input threshold. This is a very important part I want to talk about, which is the concept of the binary input voltage range. Of course, you have your binary input that can work without any issues. So you have 3 voltage ranges here. You have 10 or 19, meaning the pickup is at 19 and the drop-off is at 10 and 44, 88, and so on. Of course, usually with the control voltage, we use 125 volts DC, so you will need 44, 88. Naturally, you need a small range for either this relay or other relays in case you want to use this binary input, for example, in something like trip circuit supervision. If, for example, you are using it to receive signals from SCADA with the SCADA voltage, which is either 24 or 48, sometimes you need the 125 volts DC and your control, whether it is or when it becomes active, yes, when it becomes active if. Depending on a different range. Okay, if I choose it here like this, I told him that I made it 19. He told you, meaning if you change yours here, everything related to it will change. Okay, I want to change a specific one that I will use. What should I do? I will go here where I am supposed to find what I need, and if I don't find it, I simply go. Will it change? Okay, I want to change a specific input that will be used in the educational supervision path. What should I do? I will go here to the circuit breaker section where I am supposed to find the trip circuit supervision function underneath it. If I don't find it, I simply go to the Go and look for my relay 7SJ82 in the function group of the circuit breaker. Then I search for trip circuit supervision and I will find here trip circuit supervision through 2 binary inputs. I drag and drop it and add it to the function group of circuit breaker 1. After it is added here, I can, if I open the information routing, find the function available. So if I open the function here, how do I program it, or what exactly should I do? Quite simply, if you refer back to the manual, you will find the logic of trip circuit supervision. It relies on 2 binary inputs, one called trip relay and the other called circuit breaker auxiliary contact. So how are these 2 binary inputs connected? If we go back to the website and look at the section related to the relay, we will find that I have drawn the connection diagram for you here. This means that we know trip circuit supervision consists of 2 coils. Coil A, which is TAN, replaced here by the binary input of the trip relay. This is connected in parallel with your trip context, whether it comes from a lockout relay, trip relay, or even the open command, regardless. All right then. And I will find the second input, which is connected to the place of coil B. Great, okay, we are back here again, and we have here the LAA base and the circuit breaker auxiliary contact base. I am supposed to program these two with binary inputs. For example, the first binary input base and the second binary input base. Okay, if you enter any of these binary inputs and open the properties tab and go to the settings, you will find here that I can control the threshold voltage of this binary input only. Therefore, if I change the voltage range to work with me as a trip circuit supervision, if I control only the binary input and do not change it in all binary inputs or the general binary input, all that is present in the nice. In some other settings, you will leave them as you don't need anything from them. But then we come to needing our frequency to be 60 hertz. We might need this for something like, and the compensation. We might need this for something like distance protection. The shutter blocking is related to my inputs. All of this we leave as what? We leave it by default, but there are some things we need, like spontaneous indication. Spontaneous indication refers to things that happen in relay pickup, and trip, etc. when they are recorded, or when the voltage appears to you with any pickup, or only when a trip occurs. Meaning, if a pickup happens, should the functional traceability show it to you, or yes, show it to me, not just with the trip. All right, then we come to test support, which is very important because we will see later when we come to test the inputs and outputs, etc. Or put the relay in test mode. It comes and asks you if you want to put the relay in test mode. I said yes, and it asked how you want to put the relay in test mode. I told it there are several ways, one of which is to go to the test support section and tell it to activate device test mode. So if I check the box and send it to the relay, then I have put the relay in test mode. This is the option. There's another opportunity to go to information routing and look for the test mode application. We can find it here in the general and find test mode on and test mode off. These two I can apply here with the binary input so that one of them is on and one of them is off. Let us remember that if you apply test mode on and apply it with input and give on, it will be on. If you apply binary input, it will not be off. You must put binary input for test mode off. And if you set test mode on with input and give it on, it will remain on. If you remove the binary input, it will not be off. You must set the binary input to test mode off. Understood? So this is the second method by which I can enter my relay into test mode. All right? Whether you entered it through this method or that method, the idea is when you put a relay in test mode and come to test, or I tell you here that the binary output, for example, might not be working. Why? Because it asks you whether to allow the binary output to operate under test mode or not. So if you haven't checked this part, nothing will show up, and I'll leave it unchecked for now so we can see its effect later on. All right, so we've talked about our device setting.